Today, I'd like to share a big idea with you. In fact, I believe it could be one of the biggest ideas of the 21st century. It's an idea that could unite politicians from the left to the right in fixing our broken social security system. It's an idea that could give dignity to millions and accomplish what we should have accomplished long ago, especially in our rich and wealthy countries, eradicating poverty. Some people call it the citizens' dividend. Other people call it the basic income. Now, I like to call it free money for everyone. What is the basic income? Well, it is a monthly grant, enough to pay for your basic needs, food, shelter, education, that's it. Now, some of you might ask, don't we have this already? Isn't there something called social security? Don't we have the welfare state? Well, yes, but the basic income is something entirely different. In the first place, it's universal. So everyone would get it, whether you're a billionaire or a beggar, whether you're a man or a woman, whether you're employed or unemployed. The basic income is a right as a citizen of your country. Moreover, it's also unconditional. So you'll get it no matter what. No one's going to tell you what you'll have to do with it. No one's going to tell you what you have to do for it. The basic income is not a favor, but it's a right. Just like, for example, the freedom of speech is a right as well. But most importantly, in the past few decades, in the past 30 or 40 years, it has become more than just an idea. Free money for everyone is more than just an idea nowadays. It has become a proven idea. What researchers have shown time and time and again, by comparing a test group of poor people who received free money and another control group who was similar so that they could see what the effects would be. Time and time again, they have shown that free money results in, well, lower inequality, lower poverty, obviously, but it also results in less infant mortality, lower healthcare costs, lower crime rates, better school completion records, less truancy, higher economic growth, better emancipation rates, and all kinds of other positive social outcomes. Time and time again, researchers have shown that free money may be the most efficient, the cheapest, and the most civilized way to combat poverty. So I want to tell you about just one experiment that was done a few years ago in the city of London. Now, this was an experiment with some homeless men. To be exact, 13 homeless men that lived on the streets of London. They were street veterans. Some of them had been living on the cold tiles of the Square Mile, which is the financial district of London, for more than 40 years. And I have to mention, their presence was far from cheap. Think of healthcare costs, legal costs, policing costs. These men were costing the British taxpayers hundreds of thousands of pounds every year. So everything had been tried at that point, and it was time for something new. In the spring of 2009, a local charity decided, well, why not try free money instead? So each of the homeless men received £3,000, cash, no strings attached. They were completely free to decide whatever they wanted to do with the money. The only question they had to answer for themselves was, what do you think is good for you? Counseling services were completely optional. Now, of course, most of the aid workers, they didn't have high expectations. They thought that, well, the men are probably going to spend the money on alcohol or drugs or gambling or something like that. But then something amazing happened. What happened in the first place is that the men turned out to be extremely frugal with the money they received. At the end of the first year, only £800 had been spent on average. And where did they spend it on? Well, a phone or a passport or a dictionary. Each of the men had his own idea of what would be best for him. Moreover, a year after the experiment had started, the impossible had happened. 7 out of 13 of the men had a roof above their head. 2 more had applied for housing. Some of the men took gardening classes. Another learned how to cook, for example. They visited their children again. and all of the men made plans for the future. It sort of seemed as if the cash had empowered them. Now, I don't know if there's a politician in the room, but a politician would probably ask at this point, well, this is a very interesting story, but what did it cost? What did the experiment cost? Well, the answer is £50,000, including the wages of the aid worker. So, in addition to giving at least 7 individuals another shot at life, the project had saved money by a factor of at least 7. And this is a very conservative estimate. Even the liberal free market magazine, The Economist, concluded at that point the most efficient way to spend money on the homeless might be just to give it to them. Experiments such as these, and that have been done all around the world, show us that we need to rethink what poverty actually is. Poverty is not a lack of character. Poverty is a lack of money. Nothing more, nothing less. So it turns out that it's a great idea just to give money to the poor if you want to resolve that problem. I'd like to see the basic income as a dividend of progress. Because our forefathers worked so hard to achieve our current level of prosperity, we can now afford to give everyone a share of their accomplishments. And remember, eradicating poverty is actually an investment. There's one economist who calculated that it would cost about $175 billion to eradicate poverty in the United States. Now, that's quite a lot of money, right? $175 billion each year. But it's only a quarter of the country's military budget. So this is entirely possible. It's entirely doable. And after 10 or maybe 20 years, it will turn out that the investment has paid for itself, because the government will save billions in lower healthcare costs, there will be less crime, and there will be lots of more productive citizens who will be able to fulfill their dreams. The experiments that were conducted all over the world, and also common sense, actually tells us that most people want to contribute to society. Most people want to make something of their lives. In fact, some of the experiments have shown that poor people, especially poor people, actually work more when you give them a free grant, because it gives them the opportunity to invest in their lives or in their business, for example. Remember, once again, utopias have a tendency of coming true. The end of slavery, equal rights for men and women, democracy, they were all regarded as impossible utopian ideals once. But in history, there is something called progress, however slow and erratic it might be. All we need is a little more patience sometimes. All we need is a lot more collective ambition. So I encourage you to read more about it, to look at the evidence for yourself and think, isn't it time to update my worldview? Then 1,000 armies is an idea whose time has come. And I believe that in this century, the time has come for free money for everyone. Thank you very much.